monitored my wife's mood swings for a month, and realized the real issues were hidden in my own emotional reactions and childhood trauma. I'm 34 and my wife is 43. We've been together for 16 years and married for 7, with a 4-year-old daughter. In the beginning, my wife was incredibly affectionate, present, and loving. But over time, all that changed. Nowadays, I rarely get a kiss, let alone a hug or a kind word. She doesn't ask me how I'm doing in the morning, nor does she even say good morning or good night. This worn me down. I've tried to explain to her in every way possible that, as a man, I need those small acts of love to feel connected and valued. Her go-to excuse is that she's too stressed because of our daughter, but this lack of affection started even before she was born. She also likes to say that her affection or lack thereof depends on how I'm behaving toward her. Every time we argue, it's always framed as my fault. When I bring this up, she tells me I'm making a big deal out of nothing. I'm just so tired of arguing about it. About a year ago, I started keeping a diary where I recorded every affectionate gesture she made toward me over the course of a month. I know that sounds extreme, but I was desperate. I didn't know how else to make her see how unloved I've been feeling. Is it normal to be in a loving marriage, yet experience so little affection from your spouse? What confuses me is that our sex life is actually fine. We're intimate about 2 or 3 times a week, and sometimes she's the one who initiates it. But outside of that, I don't feel loved the way I need to be. I've been living like this for years, but now I'm at my breaking point. Please don't be mad at me. I get that everyone takes their own time to realize certain things, but this past year has been an eye-opener for me. I've always been a romantic guy, passionate and attentive. I'm the type who gives 5 or 6 hugs a day, compliments, surprises, you name it. I'm always open to talking and resolving things in different ways. But with the way she's been treating me, I've shut down. I've started pulling away because there's no reciprocity. At this point, I'm seriously considering divorce. I don't feel heard, understood, or like she's even trying to fix this. It's like I'm married to someone who doesn't care to change the situation. A bit more context. We split household chores evenly 50-50ths. I work, take care of our kid, do the laundry, trash, all of it. I'm not asking her to be my mom or anything. I can handle myself. I had to grow up fast, so I know how to take care of my own needs. But even before our daughter came into the picture, she acted this way. This whole "it depends on your behavior" argument is really frustrating. We've been going in circles for months now. I ask for more affection. She says she's too stressed or that it's my fault, and nothing ever changes. So after all this time, I just feel like, what's left? Patiently waiting for change. I found myself stuck in this cycle. I stonewall, get offended, and then we have a fight. Every time, she tells me she's had enough of my stonewalling and how easily I get upset because it hurts her. The fight usually ends with me being the one to swallow it all and try to let things go. I explain what's bothering me and hope she'll take action. But after some time passes, we're right back where we started. A few months ago, I read up on stonewalling and realized how damaging it can be, so I've made an effort to stop doing it. But even though I've changed that, I'm still struggling with the lack of affection. What's worse is how I've been treated during our fights. Yelled at, called names, and even had divorce thrown in my face as a threat. This hurt me on so many levels. Someone asked me what I'm doing to love her back, and I get why the diary might seem like a bad idea. Maybe it looks like I'm focusing too much on her actions rather than what I can control. But the diary isn't about my emotions. It's just about the facts. If I don't get a hug for 5 days straight, then I don't get a hug. It's that simple. I still show her love, though. I tell her she's beautiful, I joke around with her, and I even buy her favorite soda when I do the groceries. When she's sick, I ask how she's feeling and take care of her. But do I feel that love in return? Not really. It's frustrating because even though we have a challenging 4-year-old, there are plenty of calm moments. I'll kiss her, give her a hug, or say something nice, and it's not like she's constantly too stressed to hold my hand for a few seconds. There's something deeper going on. I think part of it has to do with her upbringing. She came from a really toxic environment. Her dad was abusive. He hit, called names, cheated, and constantly fought with her mom. While her mom showed her love, her dad didn't, and I think that's affected how she shows affection now. But what's confusing is how she used to give me exactly what I needed during the first half of our relationship. Was it just because it was new? I even asked her how things were with her previous partners. Did they ever complain about the same stuff? She said they didn't, that she was affectionate with them, giving them hugs and whatnot. But those guys were 3 or 4 years older than her. Somebody pointed out that when we first met, I was only 18. Sure, I wasn't immature for my age, but let's be real. You can only be so mature at 18. Looking back, maybe she was the one who was a bit immature for her age. There might have been some manipulation there, but I was just a young, unassuming guy and probably missed the signs. She had experience from past relationships, so she knew how to win me over and get me to commit. I get it. Why would a nice 27-year-old woman want to pursue an 18-year-old? Was there manipulation involved? Or did she genuinely want something real? Either way, here we are, and now I'm trying to figure out where we go from here. I've always wondered why my wife, who's older than me, couldn't have pursued someone closer to her own age, someone with more life experience. A commenter mentioned that older men are harder to manipulate, and maybe that's why they weren't interested. Maybe they saw she didn't have enough to offer for a long-term relationship. It got me thinking. Did they see early on what I'm struggling with now? Maybe they understood her lack of affection and attention wouldn't work for a serious relationship. For a while now, I felt like she doesn't respect me. Part of me believes it's because of the age gap. I was 18 when we met, and she was 27. Maybe that's why she doesn't treat me as well as she should. Someone asked me if she's always been this way, even during the early years of our marriage. Looking back, yeah, there's always been a lack of affection. Maybe those older men she dated saw this early on and didn't want to deal with it long-term. But if she doesn't respect me, that's a bigger issue. It's hard to shake the feeling that she looks down on me because I'm younger. When we first met, she wasn't actively pursuing me or anything. We just connected through an old-school chat room. We talked for a while, and over time, something grew between us. She was pretty skeptical at first because of the age gap, but eventually, she came around. We met, got engaged, and the rest is history. People often ask if I think the age gap plays a big role in our issues. Honestly, I was way more mature than your typical 18-year-old because of the tough life I had before that. I wasn't some immature freshman. I had already been through a lot. So, I get where people are coming from, but they don't have all the context. Maybe I was more mature and she was less mature, but that still doesn't explain everything. And it doesn't explain why she had 2 relationships with guys who were only 3 or 4 years older than her. Did they see the same issues I'm seeing now? A couple of months ago, I put my doubts aside and really went all out to show her love. I treated her like a princess for 2 weeks straight, didn't get offended by anything, constantly told her how much I loved her, how beautiful and sexy she is, and gave her hugs and kisses all day, every day. I put my heart into it. But what did I get back? 2 compliments and 1 "I love you" in those 2 weeks. That hurt me deeply. I felt so unappreciated and rejected that I decided I couldn't do that kind of test again. It hurt too much. Update, August 18th, 2024. Since posting about my situation, I've spent a lot of time reflecting and researching online. I've watched countless reels and YouTube videos to try to better understand what's going on. Thanks to one of those videos, I stumbled upon something called avoidant attachment style, and it feels like I might finally be getting to the bottom of this. I was absolutely stunned by how closely my wife fit the description of avoidant attachment. So, I dove deeper into it, studying the patterns and trying to understand how it applied to our relationship. I also realized there were things I needed to do for myself. Set clearer boundaries, demand that my needs be understood and respected, and stand firm. I made it clear to myself that, if necessary, I had to be willing to walk away. The next day, I showed my wife the Excel sheet I'd been keeping. Her first reaction was, "But we cuddled yesterday." I calmly pointed out, "Look at the bigger picture. Over the past month, there are so many things you never do. And when you do show affection, it's usually only after I've complained or we've had an argument. These aren't just opinions. They're facts." After that, I told her about the avoidant attachment style I'd been researching and how she seemed to fit the description perfectly. I read out the main traits of people with this attachment style and explained how their past traumas, often from childhood, play a huge role. Knowing her family history, it clicked that her behavior likely stems from the abuse she endured from her parents. My wife was visibly stunned. She listened carefully, and then asked me, "So what should I do to fix this?" I had to admit, I don't know. I really don't. The only thing I knew for sure and told her was that these problems likely originated in her childhood and needed to be addressed now. I've started looking into different ways we might be able to deal with this, but with our schedules being so chaotic, therapy isn't an option for us right now. That day, I cried a lot. Finally, after 16 years, I understood why we've had so many issues. A wave of sadness washed over me as I remembered all the times I'd been treated with indifference, all the moments I craved affection and didn't get it. I also thought about the lies and manipulations she used over the years to cover up her shortcomings. At this point, I've decided the first step is to focus on myself. I've realized that I've developed an anxious attachment style in response to all of this. I plan to work on healing that, probably through online courses and books, since I barely have time between work and taking care of our daughter. If it works for me, I'll suggest it to my wife. But when I told her about this plan, she just said, "Don't worry. I understand now. I know what I need to give you without any courses or therapy." Honestly, I have serious doubts about her response. I've heard this before, so I'll keep tracking things in my diary to have objective data. I've already made it clear to her that if things don't change, divorce will be the next step. And if it comes to that, I won't be turning back. That'll be the end of the road for us. In the meantime, I'm following some of the great advice I've gotten from Reddit and focusing on my own healing. I'll let you all know how things go, but I have this feeling my wife will only manage to keep it up for about 3 days. Regardless, I'll stay on my path toward healing so that when the time comes, I'll be ready for a new relationship, whatever that looks like. Stay tuned. If anyone has experience with a spouse healing from an avoidant attachment style, please let me know. Update 2, August 23, 2024. As I expected, my wife didn't last 3 days. Actually, it was just 1 day. She tried giving kisses, hugs, and cuddles, but it quickly stopped. At this point, it doesn't even matter anymore. I've come to realize that the real work I need to do is on myself. I've started my own journey of healing and growth, preparing myself to move forward without hesitation and proceed with divorce if necessary. I've also consulted with a lawyer to make sure I'm prepared when the time comes. What's interesting is that I sat down and listed all my insecurities and the issues I carry from the trauma I experienced in my childhood. There's a lot I need to fix in myself. Out of curiosity, I asked my wife what she thought my top 3 things to work on were. I was expecting a list of at least 10 things, but she only mentioned 2, defensiveness and stonewalling. She said that if I stopped doing those, I'd be a perfect husband. Honestly, I was stunned. I spent the whole day confused, trying to process that. I also asked her if fixing those 2 things would make her love me more. Her response? "No, because I already love you the way you are. This is just your cross to bear." So it seems she's perfectly content with our marriage as it is, while I'm the one who's unhappy and craving more. I want more than this. I need at least the basics: care, affection, attention from my wife. I don't think I'll give any more updates after this one, because my focus is now on improving myself. But when the time comes for me to proceed with divorce, I'll let you all know how it goes. Additional info: I'm trying to move forward and start healing, but honestly, I'm crying every day as I prepare myself for divorce. The chances of my wife changing at this point feel like less than 1%, and the issues between us run so deep. I've tried everything to get her attention, to show her love. I've given everything I possibly could, adjusting and accommodating to her way of being over and over again, but I've had enough. My heart is broken. She was my first love, my dear wife, and I loved her with everything I had, hoping to be seen and recognized in return. But every small bid for affection has been swallowed by the void. I'm devastated, truly heartbroken, and now I'm just trying to cry out all my tears before I finally tell her I'm leaving. It feels like one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, and I've done some pretty crazy, difficult things in my life. This might be the thing that breaks me. But I have to proceed. I can't keep living like this, and I don't want my daughter growing up in this kind of environment. I don't want her to think this is what love looks like, because that will only hurt her chances of finding a good partner in the future. Did I try to connect with my wife over the years? Yes, I did. Many times. Was I being affectionate in my marriage? Yes, I tried that. For years, actually, and especially during COVID. But man, that period was pure hell. It was just me working, playing video games until late at night, and sometimes watching a movie with her, but she'd always fall asleep halfway through. There was no real connection. I'd be doing one thing and she'd be on her phone. I remember a friend of ours once mentioned he had to log off from a game because his girlfriend wanted to spend time with him, and they were going to watch something together. It got me thinking, so I tried to recreate that with my wife, but it just didn't work. It always felt like I was missing something deeper. I felt completely alone, even when we were together. There was no emotional bank to draw from when things got tough. No recent moments of affection or love to remind me that we're still connected. So, when we'd argue, I'd be left thinking, why are you being so mean to me? It's not like you kissed me or told me you loved me 3 hours ago. All I ever felt was negativity. And honestly, this way of living, it's not who I am. I want to feel wanted. I want to be cuddled and held. If I'm having a rough day, I need someone who can wrap their arms around me and say, "Sweetheart, don't worry. Everything's going to be all right." But she never does that. Instead, I get phrases like, "Level up," or "Life's hard, deal with it." I know it's her trauma talking, and I don't resent her for it, but I just can't keep going like this. I love giving love, and being forced to stop or hold back is devastating for me. There are other issues too, like how she rarely initiates any meaningful conversations or carves out time for us. It's always me chasing her. I've had enough of that. Sex can't be the only way we connect. She's physically present, but her mind is somewhere else. I've tried to get inside her head, to understand her thoughts and emotions, but I've had no luck. 16 years of this, and it's been a full year now of me trying to talk about this issue with her. Yet every time, she denies it, saying things like, "It's not true. Tomorrow I'll show you." She'll point out a small gesture like kissing me in the morning and act like that's enough. Then she'll say, "Look at other couples. They don't engage as much after all these years either." But how would you feel after an entire year of trying to address a major issue, only for your partner to constantly brush it off or blame you for it? Her lack of affection is always framed as something I'm doing wrong. That's why I made the spreadsheet, to have something concrete to show the truth. The facts were right there. Any affection I receive comes after a fight or when I've complained the day before. There's a quick change, and then it's back to nothing for weeks. When I showed her the spreadsheet, she was angry. I get it, I do. It's not pleasant seeing something like that in writing. But does she understand my frustration? I'm not threatening divorce over a spreadsheet. I'm threatening divorce after a year of trying to talk about this, to fix it. If I really wanted to, I could have just walked out a year ago, but instead I fought. I tried everything I could think of. Yeah, I created a spreadsheet after months of no affection. Because what else was I supposed to do? Spreadsheet with zeros in every cell for 90 days. You know, some people just don't get it. They don't know what it's like to be in a marriage where there's absolutely no affection for such a long time. Yes, I've got my own personal issues and traumas, absolutely, and I'm working on them. But does my wife have issues and traumas too? You bet. The difference is I'm doing something about mine. Her? Not so much. That's the most likely scenario, which is why I'm moving toward divorce. Let her bring that carelessness into someone else's life. Update number 3, September 12th, 2024. I figured it was time to write another update and let you all know how things are going. I've begun my journey of shadow work, and it's been a tough, but necessary process. I started by thoroughly researching how to do it, studying everything carefully. Once I felt ready, I started confronting the pain of my past, particularly the stuff I experienced growing up. One of the first things I realized was just how clingy and needy I had become, constantly craving love, almost too much. It hit me that this was my wounded inner child, a part of me that was still vulnerable and defenseless, desperately seeking the love I never fully received. I had to face that part of myself, and instead of looking for that love outside of me, I had to give it to myself. I had to hold that child inside, embrace him, and make sure he knew that I was there to provide the unconditional love and care he needed. I know it might sound strange, but acknowledging that and talking to my deeper self allowed me to heal in a way I hadn't expected. I reassured that inner child, "I'm here now. I've got you. I'll protect you." From that moment, something shifted. I stopped seeking attention from my wife altogether. It was like a total reset. I no longer needed her kisses, hugs, or sweet words, and I stopped initiating any conversations. If she wanted to reach out, that was up to her. But I wasn't chasing it anymore. And here's the kicker. In the 2 weeks since I made that shift, she hasn't complained about anything. Not once. That realization hit me hard. It confirmed my suspicions about her avoidant attachment style. She's perfectly fine as long as I'm not seeking anything from her. This process also helped me recognize all the things in my marriage that used to trigger me and why they did. I could finally link them to the trauma I had experienced in my past. One of the first issues I tackled was my defensiveness and tendency to stonewall. I figured out that it all stemmed from how my mother treated me and the physical and verbal abuse I endured from my stepfather, who hated me. I spent my whole childhood in a state of hypervigilance, always trying to figure out if I was in danger or if someone was about to criticize or hurt me. Reliving all of that was incredibly painful, but I managed to understand why I reacted the way I did. I even tried to put myself in my mother's and stepfather's shoes to see why they became the way they were. I know their childhood stories, and while it doesn't excuse what they did, it helped me radically desensitize myself from the trauma. Without going into all the details, I shared some of this with my wife. I resolved the one issue my wife had always brought up, and I could see the results in just a few days. There were countless moments where I normally would have lost my cool or stonewalled, but I managed to stay calm, handling each situation without being triggered, even during important conversations. This made me realize just how much my past had been dragging me down, influencing my present in ways I hadn't even noticed. I was proud of myself for getting through it. Unfortunately, while this change meant fewer arguments between us, my wife didn't show any significant transformation. Sure, she seemed happier and more relaxed, but she wasn't any more affectionate or engaged. Before I started this journey, I had asked her if resolving this issue would help bring back the loving, present woman she was back in 2008. She had said yes, but so far I haven't seen any real shift. There were a few small moments. She hugged me for about 3 minutes one evening, and once she gave me a quick kiss and called me love. But that's it. At this point, it's okay because my main focus is on healing myself. What truly surprised me, though, was the immediate response from my 4-year-old daughter. She became noticeably calmer and more confident. It was as if she picked up on the changes in me right away, and her happiness and sense of security surged. Now, she's eager to play and spend time with me, and that fills me with so much joy. I felt our bond grow stronger, and it's one of the most rewarding things to come from this journey so far. As I continue my shadow work, I've moved on to another painful theme from my past, the constant rejection and arguments with my stepfather. Every time I asked for something, whether it was to hang out with friends, get pizza, play soccer, or even just get a little money for a sandwich, it always turned into a fight. He would say no every single time. And it wasn't just a simple no. It was tied to something I had supposedly done wrong or hadn't done well enough. He was relentless, and I'm not exaggerating when I say he hated me to the point of nearly driving me to suicide. Reliving all that has been tough, but it's helped me make sense of the dynamics in my marriage. My wife, although she does a lot of things wrong, constantly tells me that everything depends on what I did or didn't do with her. I'm almost done confronting this aspect of my past. The rejections, the inferiority, the anxiety, the low self-esteem, and little by little, I'm discovering a well of self-esteem, grit, determination, and even anger within me. I'm becoming a different person in this process. More confident, stronger, and more in tune with my wife's needs, too. In these past 2 weeks, I've experienced a sense of calm and serenity that I haven't felt in a long time. There have been 0 arguments with my wife, no drama, just peace. But, as you might expect, there's still a but. We have a pretty stressful situation with our daughter, and some days are just intense and heated. 2 days ago, during one of these heated moments, my wife verbally insulted me, throwing all kinds of bad words my way. I stood my ground without stooping to her level. I told her that kind of behavior is something she can save for her street friends, not for me, her husband. I hadn't done anything wrong in that situation, and I wasn't about to let her treat me like that. The next day, things escalated. She physically threatened to slap me. I wasn't scared, but for the first time in a long while, I felt a strong surge of anger and the desire to defend myself. I told her straight up, "Don't you dare. I won't tolerate this anymore. I'm not the same person you think I am, and I'm not afraid of you. So yeah, life is pretty heated right now. There are a lot of problems and changes happening, and while doing this shadow work is painful, the results are starting to show. I'm finally understanding myself, helping myself, and rebuilding my self-esteem. This shift in me is changing the dynamics of my family, too. I feel stronger, and I'm more in control. Next week, I'm meeting with a lawyer to understand what a divorce would actually mean, how it would impact my daughter, the financial situation, and other factors. The biggest difference now is that I'm no longer afraid of leaving or being left. For 16 years, that fear is what kept me stuck. But now, if it comes to it, I'm ready to take that step. I'll end with 2 thoughts. First, I'm hoping to heal quickly and completely. Now that I'm making progress, I can see my wife's issues more clearly, and I'm better equipped to recognize how I might be able to help her, if that's even possible. My goal is to be at least 90% healed before I explain to her how I've worked through my issues and who I've become. Secondly, many of you criticized me for using that Excel diary, but it turned out to be invaluable, not so much for tracking my wife's behavior, but for understanding myself. Now, I see my flaws, my insecurities, fears, anxieties, and triggers for what they are. I know exactly what I need to work on moving forward. Additional information. I'm using this time to heal. Honestly, having someone who triggers you as much as my wife does has helped me understand myself better. Once I'm fully healed and in a state of calm, I'll be ready to move forward with the divorce if things don't improve. I've realized that she needs to heal too, but I'm not in a place to tell her what she should do or expect anything from her right now. My focus is on myself. If she decides she's fine with the way things are, then that's it, a guaranteed goodbye. On the resources I'm using to deal with my trauma, I'm not following any specific method. I'm just using a pen, a notebook, and a kind of mental scan to explore my traumas. I've been asking myself 5 questions to guide me through this process. 1. What am I doing right now? I explain what triggered me and how it happened. 2. What emotions are involved? I dig deep into the feelings I'm experiencing. 3. Who are the people involved? I try to be as honest as possible about who triggered me and why. 4. What past experiences led to this behavior? I explore the childhood trauma tied to this reaction. I just state the facts and connect the dots. 5. Why did this happen? I dive into the people from my past, mostly my mother and stepfather, and try to see things from their point of view. I imagine what they went through and how their own traumas might have shaped them. No more monsters, just grown children with their own traumas and issues. I've come to see that the people who hurt me, like my stepfather and mother, aren't big, scary monsters. They're just grown-up children dealing with their own unresolved pain. This shift has allowed me to have compassion for them, and I've finally forgiven them. What did I understand? By working through all this, I realized that my past responses, my anger and anxiety, were tied to old wounds. Answering the questions I mentioned last time helped me understand why I felt the way I did. What do I want to say to myself? Now, I speak to myself much more kindly. When I feel triggered, I remind myself that it's okay to feel how I feel. I tell myself that I'm strong now and that I'm here for me. When I do that, I feel free. Update 4, September 19th, 2024. It's been 7 days since my last update, and I want to let you know how things are going. To make it easier, I'll break it down into points. 1. My healing process is going really well. I've continued to confront more childhood issues, and the effect has been incredible. For the first time in years, after hating myself and calling myself awful names, I looked in the mirror and actually felt love for myself. I even said, "I love you. You are the most important person in my life. I love you exactly as you are, with all your strengths and weaknesses. These are the words I had always wanted to hear from someone else, especially my wife, but she never made me feel that way. So I said them to myself. Now that I've matured, I feel like I've truly become a man for the first time. I realized that no one is going to come and save me. It's all up to me. Everything in my life is my responsibility, and I'm the one who has to make the changes. When I face tough or sad moments, I no longer fall into despair. I'm there to console myself, lift my own spirits, and that's been life-changing. This feeling is new to me, but I'm genuinely happy for the first time. In the next couple of weeks, I plan to finish working through the rest of my issues, and I think I'll be done with this shadow work in 1 or 2 weeks. Why is it happening so fast? Because I'm absolutely clear on what my problems are. I have the will to face everything, no matter how hard it is, and I know how to work through it. As I mentioned before, I've been confronting my issues head-on, and it's working. 2. Relationship with my daughter. My daughter is quickly noticing the changes in me. She's starting to respect me more, seek me out, and trust me in a way she hadn't before. She's grasping what's happening the fastest, and it's brought us closer. I'm falling more in love with her every day, and I've realized just how much my own self-esteem issues were affecting her. Now that I'm healing, she's thriving, and she's absolutely thrilled with this new dynamic. 3. Relationship with others. I've stopped being a people pleaser. I don't care about being overly nice, agreeable, or thanking people too much just to keep the peace. My interactions are now simple, clear, and without fear. I'm no longer afraid of how people see me, and every time I act differently than I used to, I feel this inner fire of self-esteem that confirms I'm on the right path. 4. Relationship with my wife. As expected, things with my wife aren't going well, which doesn't come as a surprise. I've been discussing everything with my lawyer to prepare for the divorce. There are specific laws and situations in my country I need to be mindful of, so I'm making sure everything is in place. My wife isn't handling the shift in power well, but the level of disrespect has noticeably decreased. I've made it clear that being yelled at in my face is unacceptable, and I won't tolerate it anymore. After several attempts to calm her down during arguments, she eventually threatened me, saying we needed to talk about going our separate ways. She said that the chances she had given me had run out and that separating would be for the common good. One particular day, she brought it up several times in the afternoon, so I calmly replied, "Okay, let's talk. I agree we should go our separate ways. I need a real woman who loves me, and I don't need to stay with you." Every time she mentioned it, she was watching my reaction closely. By the evening, she went completely silent and didn't say anything else. 2 days later, she brought it up again, saying we should talk about separation. Once more I said, "Okay, no problem." This morning, she put on makeup and came over to give me a kiss, telling me that for the sake of the family, we should give our relationship another chance. However, I've come to a deep understanding of why I'm in this situation in the first place. When we met, I was 18, insecure, and felt ugly, lonely, and miserable in my family home. I was desperately seeking someone to be with. She's a very beautiful woman, and after 2 failed relationships with bad boy types who treated her poorly, along with several dates with healthier men who likely recognized her avoidant attachment style and didn't continue, she found me. A good guy with insecurities and kind ideals, someone easy to manipulate. She drained all the love and sweetness she could from me, offering only her beauty and sex as a reward, without ever really investing herself in the relationship or committing to it. Realizing all of this was painful, but I'm moving forward. Sometimes I feel anger toward her, and other times I reflect on how broken I was back then. In a way, it's partly my fault too, but at this point, it doesn't matter. My healing process is what's most important, and that's where my focus remains. To further take control of the situation and remove any remaining power she has over me, I told her that I no longer want to have sex with her. I've decided that I won't let my judgment be clouded by sex anymore. What I need is someone who loves, values, and cares for me 24/7, not someone who uses sex as a tool for control. Sex should be the cherry on top of real love, not a way to manipulate me. Until next time.